In Paris, on Avenue Kléber, in a former Gestapo headquarters, politicians have been talking for 4 years about ending a war. Once a week, on Thursdays, diplomatic cars arrive at the conference center, bringing delegates to talk about a war in which nearly 1 million men have died, the Vietnam War.
I lived in the 82nd Troop and went to California for a year. My dad drove a newspaper truck, and I think the newspaper that he drove for went out of business, and then he wound up out in California, and we were in California for a year, and then in 1947 we moved into Orland. Okay, so I was born in 43, so I was only like 4 or 5 years old. And that's where we spent the rest of the time. High school was an adventure, okay? They started a high school in Orland, and I was one block out of the boundary for that high school. So I went to high school in Blue Island, Illinois. And I got drafted in 1966, and I volunteered for the Marine Corps. Okay, people might say, well, why in God's name did you volunteer for the Marine Corps? Well, I had an uncle who, in World War II, was a tail gunner on a B-29 bomber. So when he came home, I mean, he gave me all of his stuff. You know, he gave me his flight stuff and the helmet, the goggles, and the globe anchored eagle and all that sort of stuff. And then at the firehouse, I went on the fire department in 1964, and we had a Korea Marine that I worked with. And the guy just always got stuff done. He didn't complain, he didn't whine, he just got stuff done. And on his left arm, he had that Marine Corps tattoo. I thought that, you know, I volunteered for the Marine Corps. I was afraid that I wouldn't make it. You know, the scariest part about it is if you go in and then you don't make boot camp and you have to come back home, it's like, oh, you know, that's not too good. But, I know one thing, and this is kind of one of the humorous things, you go down for your physical, okay? Well, I worked the firehouse the day before I went down for my physical. We go through the whole thing, and I wore contact lenses at that time. So I had the contact lenses on at the firehouse. I took them out to go down and do my physical. Well, hard contact lenses, you know, 50-some years ago, contact lenses were completely different. You take them out, and it takes a while for your eyes to kind of zero in, you know, and make an adjustment. So after you get through with the physical, and I walk down this long corridor, and there's a window there, and there's a guy behind it. So you walk up to him and you give him your name, and then he rumbles through the papers and he pulls it out and he tells me, he says, you got to come back. I said, what do you mean I got to come back? He said, you failed the eye test. I'm thinking, I failed the eye test, huh? I'm honestly thinking, why don't you just kick me out? You know, say, no good, you're not fit, you can't do anything. I said, all right. So I turned around and I walked away, and I couldn't have got more than 25 feet away from that thing. And the guy called my name. So I turn around and I go back there, and he goes, you going to the Marine Corps? I says, yeah. He goes, well, you passed. So I'm thinking, wait a minute, my eyes weren't good enough for the Army, but they're okay for the Marine Corps. You probably figure you're not going to live long enough to come back home, so what difference does it make? United States Marine Corps boot camp, okay, is a culturization. It is to take you from being a civilian, and it is to prepare you to be a United States Marine. You're standing out in front of the airport and you have no idea what's going on, but you're just standing on a curb. And then out of the clear blue, ranting and raving and screaming and hollering, comes this thing that you find out to be a drill instructor. And right there on that curb you go, oh boy. Then you get on a bus, okay? And there might be, I don't know, 60 bodies on a bus that could comfortably hold 45. And again, I remember we passed a firehouse on the way into boot camp, and I remember that, and that plays into another story. And they stopped the bus, and again the screaming and the hollering, and get off the bus, and you get on the yellow footprints. There's a whole bunch of yellow footprints that are painted on the pavement, okay? And you are told to stand at attention. Now, you have no idea what attention is at that time, okay? And out of the clear blue, and then you hear this compressor is running, you know, and you're standing on these yellow footprints. And for folks who don't try to maintain a position of attention, if they're sitting there and they're looking around and they're doing this sort of stuff, out of the darkness came another drill instructor and knocked that person right flat on the ground. Poof! So now I'm 23 going into boot camp, so I'm older than most of them, all right? So it's pretty easy to figure out that the best thing to do is not do that. But some of those kids don't pick up too quick. So there's a lot of getting punched and hit and knocked on the ground. And so right then and there, you kind of feel this is a little different, you know? Then they march you into the building where the compressor's at, and zip, zip, zip. In about 3 seconds, they take all your hair off, you know? So you're back on the yellow footprints. And then they march you over to throw a bunch of stuff at you and give you something that's called bedding, and they march you down. And we were in Quonset huts. We didn't have them fancy huts like they have, the barracks that they have now. And so that whole first night becomes day, and you haven't had one bit of sleep yet, and they're still on your case about everything. Everything. You do nothing right in boot camp. Nothing right in boot camp. You have 3 drill instructors. You got the good guy, the bad guy, and the one that can go either way depending upon how they rotate. So, yeah, pretty quick you figure it out, you know. Pretty quick you figure it out, and it takes you probably about 12 hours, and you're crying for Mom. Mommy, why did I do this? I don't want to be here. But you're there. You're there. So that's the start of it. Well, the progression is you go through boot camp, then you go to infantry training, and then you go to your school's battalion, you know, whichever way you're going to go. And then we had, during leave, then you go to what they call a staging battalion. And a staging battalion, they probably have a different name for it today, but staging battalion was, I think it was probably about 6 weeks, and that was to prepare us for Vietnam, all right? To kind of back up a little bit, remember I told you I passed the firehouse when we went in there? Okay. So it was on day 2 or 3 or something like that in boot camp. And they give you these little 3x5 cards. And you put your name on there, put your service number on there, and then you can write what you think you would like to be in the United States Marine Corps. Okay? You can write that down. Well, I had been on the fire department. I passed the firehouse. Seemed reasonable for me to put down firefighter. Right? Does that make sense? Perfectly good sense. So, a couple days after that, and you're sitting in this big room, and you don't know anybody, and nobody knows you, and this guy comes up, and all of a sudden, he calls my name. Now, I'm smart enough to know that your name being called, this isn't a good thing. and I'm hoping that I have a relative there, which wasn't the case. Your identity in Marine Corps boot camp is you are a maggot, okay? So, maggot, McCastland, yeah, okay, stand up, all right? Now he proceeds to tell the other 319 that I will definitely get my choice. And I'm feeling pretty good. So I put down firefighter. He guaranteed me that I would be firefighter. Wasn't quite the civilian, but it was the military. So I can't say that he lied. Schools is whatever. Actually, my school that I went to, I was a truck driver. Okay? I had no problem. I'd driven a truck, semis, dump trucks, everything. Come out of high school, drove a truck in the fire department. So I drove a truck. I had no problem driving a truck. So then we go to staging battalion, and everybody there is, boom, everybody there is equal. Okay, at that time you're all infantry. You're all basic riflemen. That's every Marine is a rifleman. That's the creed. So as you go through boot camp, there's certain things that are critical, and one of them is that you qualify with a weapon. Not necessarily you qualify as an expert, but you qualify. And we had one young man who failed to qualify, and then on top of that, he was silly enough to say, I'm a reservist, I'm not going to Vietnam anyhow. And what happened to that young man? They loaded up his canteens with sand and water, they loaded up his pack with sand and water. And again, there's just 4 platoons, so the entire series is out at the range, and you march out and you march back. And that young man had to run around the entire series, all the time, okay? And he fell out. The only thing you could do was kick him. Nobody used to help him, okay? All right. Now, we get back, and now we're doing hand-to-hand combat. Hand-to-hand combat is nothing but a street fight. That's literally all it is, okay? There's no technique. It's just beat up on one another. And this Private Non-Qual, that's what he became known as, Private Non-Qual. They took the biggest guy in the series, and they put him together with Private Non-Qual, okay? And Non-Qual wouldn't fight him. He wouldn't fight him. So they took that guy out. Now they brought in like a average-sized dude. Non-Qual wouldn't fight him either. So then they got what they call the mouse, the smallest one in the series, okay? Now, Non-Qual started to fight the mouse. And he had the mouse pretty well tied up. And I remember that the series officer got over there and ordered the mouse to break that hold. The mouse was pretty well tied up. And then the officer says to the mouse, can you reach his ear with your mouth? Bite his ear off. And the mouse went up there and he bit the kid's ear off, and the blood come out of the mouse's mouth. And this kid is screaming, and the officer is cheering. And the mouse got promoted, and Non-Qual went to the brig. Okay? True story. So, very regimented, very, very. Another thing in boot camp, you talk about a realization of when is it different, and we were probably about maybe 10 days in. And after evening chow, you kind of go for a run. Well, this time we just kind of meandered down the road. It was just our platoon, so it was 80. And the drill instructor sat us in a big circle. And he looked around and he says, 1 year from today, 1/2 of you guys will be dead. 1 year from today, 1/2 of you guys will be dead, okay? So stupid me, I'm looking around feeling sorry for wait a minute, he never said which half, so. But the realization is you're going to war, okay? You're going to war. And if they send civilians to war, they'd all be dead. So they have to wind you up, and that's basically, what it's all about, is winding you up and do the best they can do to try to make you aware of the situation you're going to. It's not pretty. It's been, I know, tamed down considerably now. I think it's still, probably the toughest boot camp of all the military, but it's been toned down a little bit because in many legitimate respects, the drill instructors were getting abusive and stuff like that, one thing that did happen there, they marched us out, and they're talking to us about being aware of your situation, being aware of everything that's around you. Right? This guy probably talked for about 10 minutes. Well, and you figure when he's talking, right, there's got to be, what is he talking about, Well, after about the 11th minute, 5 bushes that were this close to us stood up. And every one of them was another Marine that had on all of his camouflage stuff. They had their weapons down on us. I was like, wow, okay, maybe this isn't going to be a walk in the park. So you learn to become more aware of what's normal, what's not normal. What's normal is normal, what's not normal is something's going to happen. The flight over there was kind of commercial airliner, but with a tremendous number of human bodies on it. And as we were going in there, the pilot, cracked the speaker and he says, hey, we're flying into Da Nang. And he says, if you've ever flown like a commercial flight, they kind of do this sort of stuff. They have a glide path. He says, we don't have a glide path. He says, we have to drop real quick to get in because we're a target, okay? Okay, fine. And then I remember looking out the side window to the right and the side window to the left. And on each side, there were F-4 Phantom fighters that came in and locked in right next to us, and escorted us into the ground. And I said, ooh, that's okay. So little by little, you don't have an appreciation yet of truly what's going on. You don't quite understand that, yeah, you're an enemy, you're a replacement, okay? So if they can take you out of the air, then there's a couple of hundred more replacements that aren't coming in. Get off the plane, god awful hot. And then you get in there, and now you get more orders, okay? Like I say, I was a truck driver, and then I got assigned, my orders were for the 3rd Battalion, 11th Marines, Golf Battery, okay? No idea what that was. Well, we're in Da Nang, and we're kind of saying, this looks like it may be relatively safe. Maybe we can stay here. No, you're going to Chu Lai. Okay. So you get on a C-130. No seats on a C-130. You just had some webbing stuff, so you sit there. It's a prop job. Fly down to Chu Lai. And again, no relief from the heat. Get the orders. Okay, you're going to Golf Battery. You get on that truck over there. Okay. Again, I don't know where I'm going. So now you're on the back of a 2.5-ton truck. Your utilities, or your work clothes, if you want to call them, they're still starched from the States. They're still nice and green, and nobody knows you, and nobody's talking to you. And here we go. We go down the road, and we leave what they consider to be a city, which is nothing at all like we consider to be a city. And now we're out, and we're just on these red clay roads. And you'd see some of the Vietnamese people walking along the side of the road or out doing their farming or stuff. And I remember we come to a river, and a mite boat comes across, and he drops his ramp, and the truck pulls on the mite boat and turns around and starts heading out to this island. Okay, the other side, the routine stops. Now we're on this island. Now we're up, bopping through the jungle and stuff. And we come up on top of a hill, and Golf Battery is a 105 howitzer battery. There's 6 105 howitzers. I'm thinking, what the hell am I doing here? I'm a truck driver. Yeah, well, every gun has a truck. So every truck has to have a truck driver. But you become the sixth person on that gun crew. So OJT training to learn the gun, that's basically what it is. You learn that on the fly, you know. So now, we're up on top of this hill, and there's a series of tents. I'm told, go down, see the armor, you know, get your weapon, get some ammunition, you know, get your bedding, and go down to gun 5. Okay. So we go through all that sort of stuff and go down to gun 5. I remember Corporal King was the NCO in charge of the gun. Check in with him, and you eventually find out why, when you're new, you're not an asset, you're a liability, okay? And people aren't real friendly to you. You know, they aren't real friendly to you. And you're trying to figure out why. You eventually figure that out in the 11th, 12th, 9th month, you figure that out. But, so you check in, okay? Now mind you, I'm 23 years old, 24 at this time, I'm 24. Now, Corporal King is probably 19 years old. He's got a couple of years in the Marine Corps. He's got about 5 months left to go. Okay, and then he's going back home. So, my first day, I remember it very vividly because I tried to set up mosquito netting. I never saw mosquito netting in my life, right? So we got this cot, and I got all of this nonsense that's supposed to equate to mosquito netting. And I'm looking at people that have theirs set up, and I'm trying to figure it out. And so finally I get it half-assed assembled, okay? So dark comes, and you got to understand, in Vietnam, the dark of the night is pitch black. If there's no moon, there's no light. There's no cities, there's no street lights, there's no nothing. It is pitch black. So lay down in this cot, okay, and I don't know how long I was laying there. I never went to sleep. I know that. I'm kind of catnapping, and I remember I heard these sounds, okay? And they were very familiar, and they were very close. And I'm trying to register in my head, you know, what they are. And I remember when I opened my eyes, okay, there's red specks, pew, going. Those are tracers. We shoot red, they shoot green. Holy Christ. We're under attack. Everybody else is beating feet and getting out of the tent, right? Okay, well, figure I should probably get with the program. I'm part of them, right? So, and it gets better. So I roll off the bunk. Got my M14 is down here. And the way out of the bunk, I get tied up in the mosquito netting. I can't get out of this freaking netting. I'm trying to get out of it. I'm trying to get my weapon. Here, 20 feet away, there's a firefight going on, right? I'm tied up in the mosquito netting. So finally, firefight, they're pretty quick, it's over. Okay, so finally I show up out there. So you gotta imagine in your mind what these guys think. They got this old man who shouldn't be here, and a stupid SOB can't get the mosquito netting together, much less get out of it. So that was my day one. It's kind of the way you look. We didn't have showers, you know. We had like a 55-gallon drum that they put up on top of this homemade rack, and it would fill with rainwater. And during the monsoon, it's kind of funny because during the monsoon it would rain, and the temperature would probably drop down to maybe 80, 85, and you're cold. You got insulated underwear, you know, and stuff like that. And because there's such a dramatic, I mean, it got up to like 140 degrees. Surrounded by people that you really learn not to trust because you can't trust. One night, one of the guys that we killed he was a captain in the Viet Cong, And this is the guy that had the barber shop at the end of the hill, little tent set up, okay? And you go down there and they could give you, you know, a haircut and stuff like that. But you think about it, this guy's got a straight razor and he's doing like this, and one night we kill him. Okay, not a good deal. We got rocketed pretty regular, and one night we took a pretty good beating. And the first crack of dawn, this scooter comes up on the hill. Well, they would come in onto the hill and they'd rummage around the hill looking for garbage, okay? And so this is the first break of dawn. And I remember our captain, big red pace, and I saw him come out of his hooch, and he had on his flak jacket, he had on his Marine Corps skivvies, and in his hand he had his .45. He walked up to that thing, he put a round in the dad's head, put a round in the mom's head, and killed the 2 kids that were in the back. Boom, 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 just like that. What was the rationale to do that? We couldn't get off that hill and get down that road without a sweep team going down to show us where the mines were, or to get the road mines up. And here it is, it's barely daylight, and they're coming on the hill. So that means that they're only coming in there for one reason. They're coming in there for recon. They're going to come in and assess how much damage did they do, you know, how much pain did they inflict on us. And they know darn well that road is clear or they can't get down it. So they're the enemy. Boom, 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 boom. Everybody's the enemy. If they don't look like you, and they're taller than 6 inches and they're not growing out of the ground, they're the enemy. And if you stop thinking that way, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. I remember one night we got rocketed, and toward the tail end of my career over there, I was down at the motor pool, and what they call the FDC, the Fire Direction Center, was another one of those sandbag things. Was up on the top of the hill, and it was kind of dug in, all right. And this is where the guys sit, and out in the field with the infantry, you have forward observers, okay, artillery forward observers, and you have air forward observers. And the artillery forward observers, when they needed help, they would have to figure out what the coordinates were going to be. They would send that information back to the FDC, the Fire Direction Center. Fire Direction Center puts all that sort of stuff and sends it out to the guns, okay? And then they lay the guns, and then they shoot at whatever they're told to. Well, this particular night, the FDC Center took a direct hit. And myself, Tiny Hinderman, Don Zito, we were the first ones up there, and we knew that there were people in there. So, okay, so we got to get ourselves in there and figure out what's going on. I had some experience as a fireman, so I'm going in, okay? I'm going to be the guy to go in and see what's going on. Well, this is a big pile of rubble and everything, and yeah, I remember trying to crawl in there, and my left hand slipped. You know, it was I went like that. I went, what the hell? And I took my flashlight, you know, and I shone it down, and it was one of the kids that was in there. It was his head. Was about, just was gone. Was gone. Okay. Went in a little bit farther, and the other kid that was in there was hanging on the wall, had a piece of the ammo box, was basically like a piece of 1x6, was driven right through his chest, and he was just hanging there. And then found another one, and was passing these out, and found another body that was in there, and this body was viable, and we got this body out, and then we proceeded to go back in and check for some more. We had guys that got limbs blown off, and you're trying to do the best you can to call for a medevac, but are they going to be able to get in? You know, and you tell a lot of lies. You know, you're going to be okay, buddy. You're going home. You're going to make it. You know, damn well they're going to die. You know, damn well they're going to die. And they go away, and Some you know died, some you don't have any idea whatever happened to them. You hope you make it home. You know, there's no guarantee you're going to make it home, but you hope you make it home. And would you rather be there? Yeah, you'd rather be there than, you know, you'd rather be home rather than where you were at. So, no, it's tough. We don't, like I say, we wrote letters, and then we got letters. Mail would always be, you know, there was a lag time. 67, they had a tornado that came through Oak Lawn and killed a whole bunch of people. And I got word out on the hill that everybody's safe from the tornado. There's this newspaper called the Stars and Stripes that eventually, a copy of it made it out to the hill. And there on the front page of it was the tornado that hit Oak Lawn. So, yeah, you know, it's difficult. I remember that we were out, and we went on the hill, and we were kind of marching along in a single column, and a helicopter came in, and they called my name, and I got on the helicopter, and the helicopter flew me back to the hill. So, not a lot of time, no time to say goodbye or anything else, you know, just, hey, you know, maybe we'll see you back in the world, okay? And then at Da Nang, then I packed my stuff up. I got on a truck. They took me to Da Nang. I checked with the MP. I got the Trophy of War. Slept overnight, got on a plane, went to Okinawa. As the plane is getting ready to depart, they don't do any of this is going to drop out, put this over, give it to the kid first, any of that crap. They just kind of disappeared. The barrage of profanity that was hurled at that land when that plane left was the reason that they disappeared. And once you got out of reach of any kind of ground fire or anything, then it's like, thank God I made it. Thank God I made it. You know, so then we have to go and start telling lies to one another about what we did. You know?
Through my second year of working with the Harlem Vet Project, I have learned many life lessons, not only through meeting Mac, but also through being able to hear his story as he told me his part of going through the Vietnam War. Before this class year had even started, all I could talk about was how much I looked forward to starting the class again this year, and how I was so ready to start working on my next documentary. And I always asked my stepfather, Dan, if he knew any veterans that would like to be interviewed, and he told me that he had someone in mind. Dan gave me the phone number, and I contacted Mac, and from that point, we set up the interview date here over the summer, and that was the first time I met him, and it was also the first of many times that I heard his story. Since then, I have worked tirelessly throughout this school year to try and make a documentary that not only he would be proud of, but that I also would be proud of, and something that I could make that would do his story justice. Thank you for not only your service in the military, but also your service as a firefighter. You truly are a real-life hero, and not many people have done what you did, and I am extremely thankful to have had you as my veteran to work on this year, and making your documentary truly was my pleasure.
I did go to the Bob Hope show. I was fortunate enough to go to the Bob Hope show. And I found out that Bob Hope says nothing that's not written on a card. I was a little disappointed. I thought the guy had like a real sense of humor. Everything on a card. Oh, shit, anybody can do this. You know, I could be Bob Hope. I don't get that close to Jill St. John, but I know I could be Bob Hope. How we doing? What's he doing? Is he giving you a nudge or something to keep going? We got to get out of here today? Or?